Díos mura gcuid a gcuine úsla agus 100,000 fáilte le Sheehan Storytelling Cottage. Hello everybody and welcome to Sheehan Storytelling Cottage. It's Thursday, the 20th of March, and it is World Storytelling Day. Today this year the theme of World Storytelling Day is the deep sea. So I thought that I would bring you back 3,000 years to when Ireland was a rainforest. From the tip of our country in Cork and Kerry all the way to Antrim, there was prolific trees. There was beech, there was the oak tree, there was all sorts of trees. And a little red squirrel could climb a tree here in County Kerry and make its way all the way up to the north of Ireland without ever descending from the crowns of the trees. Can you imagine that, Ireland? And in those times it was said that Ireland was Ulscoil na Dia, that it was the university of the children of the gods. And in the Celtic pantheon, the king of all gods was a man or a god called Lir, and he had a son called Mannanán. Now, did you ever have a daydream? Were you ever inside in a maths class and the teacher said, "We'll concentrate now," and a look like this would come upon your face as you went inside yourself, as you got lost in a daydream? Well, this used to happen for Mannanán every single day of his school life. I want you to picture him now. He was a tall, gangly youth. His skin was as dark as mahogany. His eyes were sky blue. And of course in Ireland that meant that sometimes they went grey with worry or anxiety or rage. And when he was happy, they were blue like a Mediterranean sea. Well, he'd go into school and the teacher would say, "Take out your philosophy books," because that was one of the main subjects. And when he'd open it up, he'd start getting lost inside himself. And then he might jump up in the middle of a class and say, get back, you bagmen!" And all the children in the school would start roaring, laughing, and there'd be a red blush on his cheeks, and he'd be mortified with himself. And then it started happening more often and more often. So do you know what he decided to do? He decided he'd give up school. Can you imagine going home to your parents and saying that you were going to give up school? Well, when he told Lir, the god of all gods, Lir filled his lung, and then in a very long breath he said, "No!" And he said it with such force that it was like a hurricane off of the edge of Ireland, and it knocked a few trees out of the way. Well, Mannanán thought he better go back to school then. But his teacher was getting sick and tired of him jumping up in the middle of the class and disturbing everybody and then regaling them with the story that had been in his head, so that the time for learning passed too quickly. Mannanán decided that he would take some advice. So he went to the wise man in the middle of the big forest. And the wise man said to him, "Do you know what it is now? Your body is way too active, and unless you satisfy the needs of the body, your mind can't rest. So I suggest that you exhaust your body before going to school every day." Straight away he said, "Imáníocht," which means hurling. But the wise man said, "Do you think now that 500 people are going to get up with you every day to play hurling?" And he said, "No, of course not." Because of course in those days it wasn't 15 aside, it was 500. Then maybe I should do something on my own." And the wise man nodded. "I fancy the swimming," he said. "I love seeing the salmon like silver making their way through Lough Foyle." So that's what he did. He went to the edge of Lough Foyle and he put his two hands by his side and he jumped in. and like a silver grace, he made his way through the water. That very first time, he was able to do the circumference of Lough Foyle 5 times. But by Friday, sure, he was able to do it 150 times. And he came staggering out, all discombobulated from circling and circling. And he said, this won't do. I'll have to take myself to the Atlantic Ocean. So that's what he did. And the children of the gods of Erin came out on all her cliffs to watch their friend swimming in the Atlantic Ocean. But you know what our weather is like. And the sky began to darken, and the sea began to rush in and rush out. And the children of the gods of Ireland said, Mannanán! Mannanán! But he couldn't hear them, for he'd fallen into one of his daydreams, and he was swimming and swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, unaware of the great storm, a storm that made the waves bigger than the highest mountain, a storm that made the troughs deeper than the deepest valleys. And then the water seeped into his bones and made him cold and made him shiver and called him back above the waves. And when he looked up, he saw the angry sky. And when he looked across, he saw the boiling water, and he became afraid. And he called out for help. Cowriaclum, help me. And as he was going down for the first time, a thought came to his mind. And in his mind's ear, he heard, Hey, dreamer, what do you see? Hey, dreamer, what do you see? And as he was going down, he thought, is that my voice? Or is it the voice of someone else? And when he came back up for the first time, he thought, well, maybe I'll answer it, for I've nothing to lose. So he said, I see the grey sky, and I see the grey water, and I see the white foam. And as he went down for the second time, that voice spoke in his mind's ear again, and the voice said, anyone can see that, dreamer. Anyone can see that. But what do you see? What do you really, really see? He jumped up out of the water then like a graceful salmon, and he dove deep, deep down into the Atlantic Ocean. And then, when he was coming up for the third time, he shouted out, the whole universe is contained in one drop of water. The whole universe is contained in one teeny tiny drop of water. Straight away the sea began to warm up and his bones began to warm, and he fancied that the sea was smiling at him. And then he dove back into the water, and as he did so, he heard in his mind's ear, dive down deep, dreamer, dive down deep. And so he did. And when he did, the things he saw a fish so tiny that you could see through it. He saw a fish so big that you could build a city on its back. He saw forests of coral in every different colour that you can imagine, and some colours that have not come into the world yet. And down he went, and down he went, until he saw an iridescent wall as big as a cliff. If you look at the skin of a bubble, you can tell that it's invisible, yet every colour dances over its skin. That's what this wall of iridescence looked like. And up he swam to the very edge of it until he popped straight through. Then he found himself running in that world of air deep under the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, and the things he saw. He saw mountains made of cheese. He saw lakes made of milk. He saw rivers made of ishkebaha, of whiskey, and he tasted from everything he saw. And then he saw an old white horse. And to you and to me, it might look as if that old horse couldn't carry a human being anymore. But he had the eyes of a dreamer now. He could see Ider. He could see the in-between. He could see the underneath. So he walked up to the horse and he looked into the Sula. And when you look into the eyes, you look into the person's soul. And as he looked into this creature's eyes, do you know what he saw there? He saw lots and lots of adventures, loads of them. So he jumped up on the little silver carriage behind the horse and he noted how beautifully carved it was with the spirals and the triskells of Ireland, with our beautiful Ogham language. And when he jumped up, he caught hold of the reins in his left hand. That's the heart hand, because at one time our heart travelled up our hands and into our chest before we were born. So he caught it with his heart hand, and then he took off into this world and went so fast on this horse that there was streams of colour on either side of him. Finally, they came back to the iridescent wall and whoosh, they plunged through. Up he came through the layers of water to the top of the waves, and there he saw them, the children of the gods of Ireland, crying out because they thought that their friend had been taken. Holding the reins with his left hand, he put his right hand up into the air and he said, I am Mannanán Mac Lir. I am God of the sea. And that was only his first story. I hope you liked it. And this is a story from Gillen's Storytelling Cottage on World Storytelling Day, the 20th of March every year.